Please stand by.
Are you picking this up?
Yes, sir.
Mission accomplished.